Topic is the used car war with our panel partners, Cars Commerce. Let's hear it for Cars Commerce. Okay. Lunch is just working its way, you know what I mean? So this is going to be a rip-roaring panel because we're calling up three troublemakers, well, two troublemakers and one responsible adult. First troublemaker is Joe Neiman, president of Dealer Club. Come on up, Joe. All right, first troublemaker, you get to sit closest to me. That is exactly where you need to be. The responsible adult, Joe Blanco, corporate assistant used car director at Sheehy Auto. It's a lot of pressure. And the one and only Brian Kramer, who is the EVP of Cars.com and general manager of AccuTrade. Oh, wow, fan club. Okay, so listen, we have an app. Raise your hand if you have the app on your phone, the ASOTU app. Great. Keep your hand up if you know how to use the Q&A function. Less. All right, so when you open it up, you want to tap Agenda. And this session should be toward the top of the agenda. It'll say live. And if you tap that agenda in the bottom left-hand corner, you will see, or the bottom right-hand corner, one of the corners in the bottom, will say Q&A. Please put your questions in there. We will get to as many of them as we can. Some of the best conversations happen when we're interacting back and forth. And I will say, several product ideas have come up that way that were then developed and released for all dealers to use later that year. So we'd like to keep that very, very open and active. So thank you very much for that. Okay, let's get into it. So the used car war is kind of like a very sensational topic, but I think it's an accurate depiction of what it feels like every day when you go in trying to stock inventory in a volatile situation. There are lots of tools and technologies being deployed at a variety of levels across dealers, dealer groups, and I think it's pretty safe to say that no tool is really deployed the same way in every dealer, right? Because everyone's got different operations that back it up. So I want to get into some of the strategies that you're seeing, Joe, some of the strategies you're deploying, and we have two Joes. Okay, all right, who's going to be who? I'm just going to look at you and make eye contact. No nicknames necessary. Joe Blanco, I would love to know what you're actually deploying in real time. And then from Joe Neiman and Brian, I would love to know what you're seeing at your level. I think you have a distinct advantage of being able to see a lot of data and see a lot of behaviors, global behaviors, that then you can bring insights back and help us, maybe iron out some more strategies for our stores. So give us a little overview of your used car operation and your acquisition strategy.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. The newest, obviously the biggest thing is AccuTrade is our newest tool that we've really done, implemented in the stores. I think the customer wants a simple, easy process to get a number online, in the showroom. Our salespeople want an easy process, a transparent process. I was just at a store right before I came here. I was talking about the online to showroom process, and that's really what AccuTrade gave us, and that's really was the linchpin that made us sign up with them and using their platform to appraise cars, but online and in the showroom.
A unified process.
Yeah.
And so, how long have you been using it? You said
I think we're a year total.
We started talking about it at ASOTU last year.
Yeah, I think that's where we met. So yeah, about a year, and we've slowly rolled it out to all 30 stores, but in the last 6 months, I think we're 100%.
Can you give us a little overview of where your inventory is coming from? How many are coming in from trades? What are you buying at auction?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about percentages. We probably sell 1,500. It's called 1,200 trades a month, 500 auction purchases, and the biggest thing right now we're focusing on is direct from consumers. So Sheehy buys cars. That's about 11-12% of our sales, and I think we can get that to 25% with the right processes and people in place.
Do you have any, when we were talking a week or so ago, you mentioned something I'd never heard before, and it was being able to be more generous on an appraisal if the customer is a VIP. I think that's worth looking into a little bit.
So we, we have a Sheehy VIP program. It's a really great retention tool, but really just identifying, I think every used car manager wants to hit the trades light or get cars, really cheap, but the reality is, I think if it's a good car, clean car, it's serviced with you, they bought it from you, that car is worth more money, and we need to figure out a way to do that. So using AccuTrade's technology, we've built a custom button in there to use that and leverage that to really show the customer, hey, we want your car and we want to pay all the money for it. Because that's really where it is. It's not really just about getting cars for cheap. We have to be the highest bidder at the right number.
Got it. Brian, you and David Long, how many here know David Long? A lot of you. So they have this epic battle going on, if you didn't know. Typically fought on Clubhouse, but sometimes in person. It's like that scene in the Avengers when like Iron Man fought Captain America. You're like, I like them both so much. I don't know who I want to win. And the argument.
The consumer is the one who should win.
Oh, here we go. Okay. David would agree with that, by the way. And so.
Kind of.
We should zoom in.
As long as he didn't have a conflict with his bias.
Okay, fair enough. But the differentiator is that David says we need to see every car. We need to put a distinct number on every car, touch it, feel it, bring them to a buy center. You say I need to put as many appraisals out there as possible. And I think you have some new data that maybe doesn't prove David's point.
Well, I can only talk to those 100,000 appraisals.
Yep.
From 11 dealer groups, anywhere from 10 to 35 rooftops. But what we found is that there's kind of three buckets that they fall into. And the buckets that they fall into is if you're appraising, appraisal efficiency is how many cars do you sell relative to how many cars you appraise. So if you sell 100 cars and you appraise 100 cars, you're at 100% appraisal efficiency, 1-to-1. But if you're doing that, you're typically around a 35% trade capture. So you sold 100 cars, you've only taken in 35 trades. Those stores also miss, when you take a look at the missed trades report, in Viato in this case, they're exceeding 20% of their appraisals being missed. That means they're getting lost somewhere else, CarMax, Carvana, whoever. Then there's dealerships that were at 150%, or 1.5 to 1. I think you see these same numbers in your group as well, at least when we were talking. But 150% goes up to 46% trade capture on average, and there's a range. But then it goes down to 15% missed trades. And then you've got the ones that appraise 2-to-1. So 200% appraisals. So if you're selling 100 cars, you're appraising 200. You would think that you would miss more trades because you're appraising more cars, you're putting more people into the market. But what actually happens is they stop shopping, their consumer behavior changes. All of those stores in that bucket had north of a 53% trade capture and a single-digit missed trade. So the bottom line is the more cars you appraise and the more numbers that you give, the less people shop you. And they might not transact immediately, but they're not selling their car somewhere else, which is definitely what happens when you're either risk averse or whatever bias is going on in your mind to not provide somebody a number.
Interesting. So do you deploy that process, appraise everything?
Yeah, 100%. We believe in, we appraise 9,000 cars, we sell 4,000 cars, so we want to put a number on every single car.
And you put a number on it via whatever method of contact.
Yeah, I mean, we love to drive the website, but everything starts in AccuTrade. But ultimately, we put our numbers on it, and we want to be aggressive when they're not in the showroom and realistic when they are.
So I think the wholesale side of this now, right? We're appraising cars, we're buying trades, buying cars off the curb. I think there's a whole new dynamic when we talk about the wholesale side and maximizing what you can get for your car or selling your wholesale inventory faster. And you have some great perspective on the wholesale market, having built ACV and been a dealer before that and Dealer Club now. What are you seeing in the wholesale market? What's making the big difference on people who are buying and selling on the platform?
So I think the way I think about it, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. So when I used to walk the lanes when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, and you buy cars and you pay a premium as a buyer from people that you know and trust and where there's reputation.
Okay, I'm going to pause you right there. Dealers in the room. Is that true? I see a lot of nodding heads and hands going up.
Okay. So I did build ACV. I was the founder of that company and very proud of that. And that's grown to be a pretty good behemoth and have some real market share. What I'm talking about never made it into that product. And it really has not, it's really been lost in any of the online platforms. And so what we're doing with Dealer Club, well, I'm not trying to pitch that because basically the same functionality exists at physical auctions, but you have to be able to capture who is that seller and the essence of them and why is that car being brought to market, because otherwise you fall into general like narratives, and those are dangerous and they're useless, honestly. When you go and say, oh, every car that's at an auction, it's there for a reason, like, come on. Are you even in the business? But people say these things and then they kind of, their behavior follows through with them. And same goes for, we look at Carvana and we look at CarMax, we go, oh, they're just playing with public market money and they're too big to fail, but they don't know what they're doing. Newsflash, I think they know what they're doing, And in wholesale, like, wholesale's not a dirty word. Auctions are not a dirty word. And I think we've got to change that perspective too.
Why do you think that is?
Because you can't paint with these general pictures. There's great cars that go to auction, and there's rats that go to auction. But if you're not there, you don't even know what you're missing. Do auction platforms need to evolve? Absolutely. That's what we're focused on doing. But when CarMax reps cars at auction, they rep them accurately. They commit to some absurd 98% sell-through rate, and because of that, because they're doing the right things up front, they reap the rewards of what they have cultivated, which is a loyal buyer base. Their cars bring a premium. It's all full circle. How can CarMax outbid, every other dealer, so to speak, or at least level them up? It's because they know on the disposition side. So, hold my beer. So,
did you even drink out of this?
Yeah, I'm sipping on it. So you got to increase, you have to increase the aperture of your audience and what they're willing to pay. If you want to step up and acquire more cars, and this is where all these dealers, they freeze. They go, oh, I want to put a number on every car, but I'm scared. Well, why are you scared? Because you haven't maximized what you can do with that car, or how I can get out of that car. Or if I'm a Ford store and somebody's trying to trade in,
a Black Widow F-150.
Sure, or a Maserati. They're scared to it. They're scared of it because they don't know where to go with that. They don't have a great disposition channel. If you're CarMax, you know you can get out of that car because you've got that loyal buyer base. You've got the audience, right? And they trust you, so they'll pay the right money for it. If you're Joe Blow GMC and you've got a used car manager who bought one of those 18 months ago and he lost $4,000 on it because it was a fluke, he's scared to death of it, and he'll never put the right money on it, and you won't get that deal. So you just have to you have to get everything, a lot of what Brian and I were talking about before was process. And you have to have a good acquisition process, and you have to have a great disposition process, because if you have the ability to move cars through your system and not choke on them, then you can pay more, then you can acquire more, and you can do it all confidently because you know how to get back out of these things. So fundamentally, the same car is worth a different amount based on who is representing that car at an auction. That's actually a beauty of the auctions. That's an empowerment. It's the same thing that goes for in retail. If you're a reputable dealer, you can command a premium selling cars to consumers. People will pay more. I think we're past the point of
the price is the only thing.
I would hope so.
Here's your beer.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Need it.
I think that as just consumers in general, we believe this principle that you're talking about. I'm thinking about, home contractors, right? We all know that no two are the same. They're not going to approach the problem or the project the same. They're not going to leave the project in the same state when they leave. Cleanliness is going to be different. Timeliness is going to be different. And I think many people would easily be willing to pay more if you know the reputation. They're going to be there on time. They're going to clean up while they work, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we own this idea, in every area. And also for those who have been on the lanes and bought cars, right? The person with the reputation that those cars are always clean. Sometimes they're better than I expect. And so you're willing to take a risk. And if there is an issue with one of those cars, either they're going to fix it or you're probably maybe even a little likely to just overlook it and keep moving. Brian, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that if you expand on what they're both talking about, there's the acquisition, there's the disposition, and then there's what happens in between. And I think and that's one of the things, and Joe's being humble, but they do an amazing job at the in between. And what I mean by that is they can be more aggressive than most, if not, almost everyone online. Where when I saw, at a recent meeting I was attending with them, that CarMax is not one of the top players that's conquesting them anymore. Like they're not even in the top 3 when you look at the missed trades report, which I don't ever see that. But because they're going so far on offense, they can be more aggressive. And I see that the dealers that are more risk averse on an online acquisition strategy don't have confidence in what's going to happen once they arrive in the showroom. And if you take a look at what the best dealers are doing, they're doing active trade appraisals 100% of the time. And if you look at it like your F&I department, things that we would never tolerate in F&I, back when we used to run $400 a copy, if you look at today, we're running $2,000 a copy in F&I. The things that got us there, 100% of the customers getting presented 100% of the menu, 100% of the time, meeting the customer in an interview, all of those little things, objection handling. Then we go to the appraisal process. And then we don't go out and meet the customer. We don't walk around the car with them. Many cases it's because it's cumbersome, the technology won't allow it, but there's technology that can. We can help you with that. But let's once you get past all that, if you don't think that you're going to, you have enough bandwidth and you're too in the weeds to be able to have your people walking around every car, scanning everything with an OBD, measuring tread depth every single time, that's why they get conservative. That's why everybody wants to give a range, because they're not that precise. Now, CarMax, if you look at them as the best practice, they do that 100% of the time, 100% of the customers, and 100% the same way with a menu presentation like our used car condition report, so that everybody's getting the same experience and it's standardized. And that's what I see. That, there's other dealers in this audience that are, doubling their PVR as a result of getting really surgical on those steps.
Joe, is that tracking, like the precision?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Actually, the dealer group that's taken all our trades is sitting in this room right now too. So, and I think they're also an AccuTrade store. But yeah, 100%. The one thing I was thinking about, is factory sale, right? They bring more money than the repo lane, for all the reasons that Joe was talking about. And we're trying to put that on, as a brand, a Sheehy brand. You leverage our size, our we have different markets, different brands, 30 stores to kind of create our own little dealer club, internally, because frankly, we don't want to wholesale anything. We want to retail all of our cars. Of course we do sometimes. But I think really if we focus on the acquisition, if you get in the car right, you can pretty much retail anything.
I mean, is there a single dealer in the room who would raise your hand and say, I would hate to be so confident in my pricing that I would be the highest offer on a used car, on a trade, on an acquisition? Right? Everyone wants that. And so I feel like you've achieved that. So tell us a little bit more about some of, like, when the transition happened, or because it doesn't sound like it's always been this way, right? I mean, I know you started the AccuTrade journey a year ago. When would you say you became so confident that you were at the top of the market as far as offering?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we're always the highest one, but I think we really put in a lot of effort in putting in safeguards on double checking our appraisal values. We can talk about that. Like, we have an HQ process where a second manager appraises the car.
Explain that process, because I think the practical sometimes helps unlock something.
Yeah. So basically, our process is the salesperson does the full AccuTrade process. Ideally, they do the blue driver. They scan the car. They put the tire depth in. The manager verifies all that. They drive the car. They push it to vAuto. They appraise the car based on the R book, based on the information that AccuTrade gave us. And then they put their number on it. We had vAuto build out a button in there to send to HQ. We have, I think, 8 to 10 senior managers, GSMs, or used car managers in the company, or buyers. Put a second opinion on there. They verify Carfax or auto check. If we're too low or too high, they just put a second opinion on there. That's really gotten us to the point where we, knock on wood, we really have almost no massive wholesale losses. So we've been really kind of play on the edge there a little bit. And then I think also we use, simple as creating a Teams group with all of our sales managers on it, where if somebody needs help on a car, they can put that number on there. And we know, like, hey, we're going to bid on this chat group, and whoever bids the highest gets the car. And we've won a lot more trades by doing simple processes like that.
I'm going to try to see if there are any questions in the app right now. And there are. Let's see. Well, we have a lot of questions. Let's get through as many as we can. This one from Christopher. Would technology make the auction model obsolete altogether?
I would like to think not. No, I mean, I don't know. Like Joe's here saying, and I agree in some respects, like, yeah, retail every car that you possibly can, but also I'm a big believer in specialization at a per rooftop level. It doesn't have to be laser, narrow focus, but you should specialize in something because then you can command a premium for it. You should not be opposed to wholesaling cars to get rid of them because they're not the right product market fit and there's a better end user for it. That's okay. Mm-hmm. And it's also a money-making opportunity. It's a profit opportunity. Wholesale is a profit opportunity. If you're still thinking about wholesale as plus or minus $100 at the end of the month on a per unit basis, that you're like Stone Age mentality. I'm sorry, but there is so much money to unlock in wholesale, and it's not a bad thing to say that. Because on the flip side, you should be looking everywhere. Like if you're a Cadillac dealer, you should have as many Escalades as you possibly can. Like you should know your market and you should acquire that. So I don't think so. I think auctions are a beautiful like bleeding edge of capitalism, and the truest, like that's the real car market in my eyes. And there's a lot of effort out there to kind of whitewash all that with just like average MMR and commoditization of the VIN. I don't believe it. I think what you guys are doing in your group, I love hearing that, but you're creating a intrinsic knowledge base in your dealership among your managers of like deep knowledge, shared knowledge. That's like a beehive effect where that group gets so much smarter collectively, and you're investing in your managers. I've been in so many dealerships where that used car manager has no visibility into auctions. They've never been to an auction. Like they can't really do their job effectively, in my opinion. But clearly you're doing something very different and sharing that knowledge and educating them. I love that. You're investing in your people.
No, yeah, and that's actually a big topic. Brian was at our used car summit, and I said, my brother wanted to buy an Explorer, and I only had a couple guys I could call to go buy one at the auction for me. So that's definitely something that, auction is vital to understand the business.
It's where the best end user is ultimately revealed.
There's a best end user question. How can you speak this from Frank? How can you speak to how knowing and understanding the best end user data drives values?
Sounds like a Brian question.
Well, I'll use it. This analogy. When I had a Toyota store in Naples, Florida, I had we would buy Porsches and a lot of exotic cars because the dealerships across the street didn't want to put numbers on sight unseen appraisals, and they had a policy: they're too complicated, so you have to come in. And I would acquire these 911s and Bentleys and all this other stuff, and typically, take it direct to wholesale because I was scared of it or it was too expensive. But in one case, we bought a 911. It was a 992. And for 60 days, it sat in my showroom. A ton of people came in and looked at it. My salespeople couldn't sell it to save their life. They didn't know about the car. They didn't know all the nuances of it. Everybody would come in, is this a 992? My salespeople would say, no, it's a 911. Didn't you see the back of it? So they don't know the difference. And then the customers would say, well, where did you get this car from? Well, we bought it off the street. Why wouldn't they sell it to the Porsche store? I don't know. And you know how that story ends. And then I take it to the Atlanta auto auction, where it brings $15,000 more than I had it on cars.com for, and then somebody else sells it for $15,000 more than that because I wasn't the best end user in that instance. And it's staffing, it's marketing, it's product knowledge, and it's, in that situation, I'm not going to be the best person to sell that vehicle. A Porsche dealership is. And every single asset is like that, and there's examples like that. And if you're not able to identify that, you can't get as aggressive as you need to be and step up. The better you are at wholesale, the better you'll be at retail, and you'll be able to win them all.
It's a great story to highlight that. Here's a question from Gabriel. So appraising more cars knocks people out of, going back to our earlier conversation. So appraising more cars knocks people out of the market. What happens to them? Do they get a dose of reality and find out their car isn't worth what they thought it was? Or where are they going?
Well, it depends on if they're retargeting them. So there's retargeting, maybe there's negative equity, but I think that the buyer's journey, we don't have a lot of data on that. We have a lot of data on selling cars, but we don't have a lot of data around the consumer journey for acquiring cars and what consumer behavior looks like, and it's constantly evolving and changing. And there's a lot of other factors. what's the value that you're putting on it, and what's the acquisition strategy. I see a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into it, and I think that you should have a sourcing strategy just like you have at the auction for consumer acquisition, but significantly, like you guys do. I mean, it's significantly more strategic and surgical when you're talking about consumers, and it's constantly changing as to what you need to be acquiring, and I put more emphasis on that than auction sourcing strategy.
Refresh these real quick. There is one question I think you answered, Joe, but there might be a little more nuance here. This question's for you specifically. With your experience building ACV, who is all digital, and now buying brick and mortar locations, now at Dealer Club, what changes do you see being affected in physical auctions in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years? What do you see coming, and what would you like to see happen?
That's a lot to
It's a
unpack.
very simple question. It's got 4 parts.
Go. Remember them all. I will just say, like, I have always been a huge fan of physical auctions. So my background,
Beautiful bleeding edge of capitalism.
Exactly. You said it. Yeah, it's like the
You said
Turkish
it.
bazaar. I did say it, but now you said it too. So we're saying the same thing. It's an amazing place where there's like stimulus overload. It's kind of like a casino for car dealers. So that was my gambling. I am a car dealer at heart, and that's kind of what I identify as. And I had a dealership, in my early and mid 20s, and sold, 40, 50 cars a month, but with a ridiculous 22-day average inventory turn retail, and it was a hoot. I loved the auction. I think the auction, that's like where, that's where the real car people are, if you will. And I know that's that's a strong opinion to have, but to me, if you don't have that great knowledge and understanding, you're missing a key component. If you're out there, running a dealership every day, you got to have auction level knowledge. Anyways, so I don't think the physical auctions are going anywhere. I think the fact that ACV is investing in them, and I don't have any insights, but I know they're buying some physical auctions, and I think that's proof positive that there is some magic there that at least that platform is not able to replicate or capture with a digital only solution. I do believe that what we've built with Dealer Club is different and really does propel the digital experience meaningfully forward and maybe even beyond that physical auctioning world. But I don't think the physical auctions are going anywhere. I think that what I will say, I said this earlier today, I am not a fan of simulcast as a user. Not because of user experience per se, but when you are in the lane at an auction, and then there's folks that are online, those people that are online have a significant disadvantage. They really cannot read the room in the same way. And I know it's become, kind of just a whatever, it is what it is, and that's how we operate. But man, I never felt comfortable. I was always an in-lane touch it, feel it guy. And I would see these bids come in, and I'm like, oh my God.
They definitely don't see what I'm seeing.
They're not seeing what I'm seeing. And whether it was about the car or about the shill that's running up the bid or whatever. So my advice, and I don't expect you all to take this and stop buying on simulcast, but I think you need to be in the lane if the cars are in a lane, or they need to be presented on a completely digital marketplace where at least you've got some clarity about how people are participating. When you try and blend the two, I think there's a lot of other factors going on that not everybody's got a visibility into.
Yeah, I think other people have a frame of reference. It's called online dating.
Never done it.
Joe, what's next for you? What's the next target of your attention in the next 12 months?
Yeah, our big thing right now is we're a service lane acquisition. We just left NCM training on management training, all of our GMs, and how can we elevate our people? And we have some really, really talented individuals working, in a couple of our stores, and we just promoted them. So I think really just focus on how can we acquire more cars, and frankly, how we'll see how we're really doing a good job is our new car market share, and really driving our new market share, speeding up the trade cycle, and of course, buying cars off the street.
Very nice, thank you. Brian, what's next for AccuTrade?
I'm just going to keep learning from Joe's group. They're pushing the boundary forward. I took a ton of notes when I was attending their summit recently, but for me, it's now at a point where there's so much innovation happening all over with all products, right? All over the industry. It's just our goal at Cars Commerce is just to remove friction and try to help everybody get there as fast as they can.
Joe Neiman, Joe Blanco, Brian Kramer, thank you so much for sharing your time. Let's hear for our guest today. Thank you for being here. Have a great rest of your day.